I'm moderating today as your co-chair of the Electronic Research Administration Subcommittee or committee within SCP. And we're very pleased to talk once again about SciENcv. And the particular emphasis this session is going to be on SciENcv adoption. So next slide. So we're going to have some speakers, Bart and Michelle, to talk to you about what the federal agencies are doing on SciENcv. But we want to then transition to stimulate discussion and thinking amongst the research community about how can we better adopt and further adopt this critical resource. So many of you know that SciENcv was initiated at request of the Federal Demonstration Partnership and NSF's fairly recent adoption of it as an approved source for the biosketches and current pending support documents was also an FDP initiative 2 years ago in the main session in the September of 2018. So it's pretty important to us as a organization, and I think important to a lot of you as a resource that we're using in research. So first up, I'm going to introduce Bart Charwick. He's the Director of Customer Services Division. He's the SciENcv guy, and he's going to talk a bit about, if you're not super familiar with it, he's going to help you get oriented with it, and he's also going to talk about some of the things that we've done, or he's done recently to adapt to your feedback. So let me hand it over to Bart. And let me put, while he's taking over, please plug your questions into the chat, and then at the end, I will direct the questions to the appropriate person. Go ahead, Bart.
Right. David, thank you so much. And it looks like I have control now, so I can, hey, there's my title slides, fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to be here to be able to speak with you guys again. The last time we talked back in the fall was right when we were on the cusp of SciENcv becoming an approved source for biosketches for NSF. So we got some exciting updates to talk about, see what's new, but I always like to start off with what is SciENcv? What are we trying to accomplish? What's the big deal? So as David had mentioned, SciENcv came out of a request from right here at the Federal Demonstration Partnership. The original request was, hey, why does each federal granting agency have a different form of the biosketch? Everybody's asking basically the same questions, but everyone kind of has a different form. And can you guys just figure out a single biosketch form you can agree on, and then we can just go from there? And of course, the answer is no, because all of the granting agencies have slightly different data requests and needs, and so the forms are slightly different. But we knew we could do something really good, and we said, all right, well, what if we made a system that could respond and put out a biosketch in any of these formats and kind of make things easier along the way for the grant applicants? So that's really kind of the first goal that we have in making SciENcv, was to make things easier. We know that scientists, they have a lot of things that they're juggling at the same time. They're managing their labs and applying for grants. How can we make a tool that makes it a little bit easier for them? And one of the ways we could do that was we knew they had data that was existing in many different platforms at their universities, at the granting institutions. It's not fun having to enter what college you went to and what graduate school and everything else time and time and time again. So why don't we make something that can kind of pull that information and populate this really well? And there's lots of benefits, not just for the investigators, but also for the granting institutions, because now this gives us an opportunity to kind of see where people are going in their careers. At NIH, where I am, we fund a lot of graduate students, and not everybody goes into academics. You have people that go through graduate school and then enter into industry. And so maybe if we had a system that we're able to capture information about them and then kind of track their progress through science, that would be really great. So that's really what SciENcv is trying to accomplish here, and we've tried to keep it really focused on these goals and lightweight and delivering on what we want to try to deliver on the whole time since we first started releasing it, which was in 2013. And since that time, we support both the NIH Biosketch as well as the NSF Biosketch, the NSF current and pending support, and the Department of Education's Biosketch as well. And we have integrated with several different systems, and I'm going to show you how that works. And I put a URL there, and that's how you can find and start using SciENcv for yourself. So making things easier, well, I always like to start with Exhibit A, which is I pull out the application guides for both NIH and NSF. And the reason I do this, one, is because NSF has the most beautiful application guide, and this is coming from someone at NIH, like, I wish we could have yours with the nice cover. But within these 310 pages that NIH has and 185 pages, you'll find within there how to set up a biosketch for each of these agencies. And it has all the rules with lines per inch and what fonts to use and how big the margins have to be and how many pages it can be. And it's complicated to go through all of this information. And this is an advantage that you can have by using SciENcv, which encapsulates all these rules and enforces them all and just presents you a really nice, easy form that you can go through and fill it out and adhere to all of these guidelines. So the other way that we make things easy is we allow existing agency logins to be used to access SciENcv. And actually, it's really an advantage if you already have an account with NIH. If you have an NIH grant, you'll have an eRE Commons account. And if you're an NSF user, you'll have an account with NSF. You can use those same logins to access SciENcv. And it's a benefit to actually use those logins because now we can associate you with those granting institutions, and data that you have there can be leveraged and pulled in and used while you're filling out your biosketch. And the third example I have on this page right here is Orcid. This is the Open Researcher and Contributor ID system. It's a nonprofit. It sits above all federal agencies and publishers, and that's also a great way to sign in to SciENcv as well. And there's more. The additional part is you can sign in from multiple of these accounts at the same time. So the way I like to describe it to people that are using it, you can have a SciENcv account, and each of these different logins is like an additional door that you add in so you can access that account. So you can use login.gov or eRE Commons or a Google account. You can have all of these, one from each at the same time as a way to access your account. And you can pull in information. So if you have an eRE Commons account, you can also pair that with an Orkut account and get information from both of those. When you're in SciENcv and you're signed in, your username is going to be up in the upper right-hand side of the web browser. And if you click on that, you'll come to a settings page. It'll show all the linked accounts that you currently have, and you can completely manage that. You can add additional accounts or take some away as you choose. But it's a nice, powerful feature that adds a lot to the SciENcv experience. One thing that I want to mention, we use the In-Common Federated System for signing into this, and I think there's over like 4,500 different university systems, et cetera, that you can use to sign into SciENcv. And we are going to be removing one of the doors, and this is an NCBI local account. So if you've set up a local username and password at NCBI, that one login out of the 4,500 is going to be phased out starting this year. But otherwise, you can use any of these other accounts that are available to you. You might find your institution if you click on this More Logins option page. And there's so many that we have to, we have this nice little alphabet where you can quickly jump to the one that suits you best. But we will be phasing out local authentication in 2021. So as I mentioned, you can sign in with with these outside authentication systems, and it helps to bring in extra data that you might have existing on one of these systems. So if you've linked your eRE Commons account, you can have, now we know you're an eRE Commons funded investigator. Your awards will be associated with SciENcv. The profile information that you've had to set up in Commons is going to be made available. And the same thing with these additional login options. Orkid, if you set up an Orkid account, you can link that as well to SciENcv. And now you could pull information from both eRE Commons that has your awards, or Orkid, which might have awards that are not housed at NIH. So adding these extra ways to log in and access your account gives you additional options for pulling information in. And I'd really like to take a moment here to say how this helps when you start linking this data, because this, we don't just sit on this. This all goes out into different systems that NIH has. And what I'm showing right here, this is a page from my Bibliography. So this is the Bibliography Citation Manager that comes default with SciENcv. For NIH-funded investigators, they are already using this system because they have to use this to fill out their annual progress reports. And as part of that, they'll link their citations to grants that they have. And this is showing here that somebody has linked one of their grants. And once that happens, this citation grant linkage, it goes right out into PubMed, and you can see that the grant support has been added to this PubMed record. You could search PubMed for this grant. It'll pull out all the citations that have been linked to it. It also goes out and populates the NIH reporter, which shows all of the grants that have been awarded and all the publications and medical devices and patents and everything else that's associated with those grants. That information goes out to there. And it's available for you to pull in to SciENcv. So in this example, somebody has added this citation. It has a DOI, which makes it easy to find it. All that comes in automatically to SciENcv. They've added it to their Biosketch. You can see that this information, all the identifiers are part of that citation, and it just makes it a much richer and better way for you to link all this data and have it available in all of these different systems. So SciENcv kind of, for the NIH aspect of this, it kind of fits into this ecosystem where the NIH gives out a grant and people are publishing papers and they're sequencing things. When they come to NIH and they submit this to either the PubMed Central Literature Database or one of the sequence databases that NCBI maintains, NIH investigators can link this to their grants, and then it's part of my bibliography, and they are able to report this out as their on their progress report. And SciENcv kind of came along a little bit afterwards, and this is when we kind of realized, hey, we have all these funded investigators, they're maintaining these bibliographies. It's really a great starting place to fill out a Biosketch, and that's how SciENcv fits into this as well, because you can make a Biosketch to fill out your NIH grant award. If you want to put in a grant application for the NSF, you can make that out of SciENcv as well. So it kind of is part of this loop that goes with grant applications and then the output that comes from that research that they're conducting. So making things easy. SciENcv, we have this nice, very straightforward interface on how to fill out the Biosketch. Whether you're filling out the NIH Biosketch or the NSF Biosketch, when you're in the system and you're working with it, you have a very straightforward way to, it's uniform between these two types of Biosketches. It kind of leads you through the information that's being requested. It's pretty straightforward. If you've linked one of these accounts, and for example, I'm showing here, I've linked an Orkid account, and I'm ready to set up a new Biosketch. And when you create the new Biosketch, you have a dialog here. What kind of Biosketch would you like to make? I'm going to make an NIH Biosketch. And I would like to start from information that's in my linked Orkid account. And so here's an option here. If you want to start with a blank document, that's fine. But if you choose to start from information in your Orkut profile and you click create, it's going to go out, it's going to pull the information that you have in your Orkut account, and it's going to use it to pre-populate some of the fields that are being asked by the NIH. So here you might be able to see, it's probably too small, but I have education information that's in my Orkut account, and I've linked it. I've decided I wanted to use that to start my Biosketch, and it's pulled right over and it populates it, and I'm kind of off to the races. It can't fill out the entire thing. There's other bits and pieces that have to be added, but it goes a long way to kind of getting you off to a running start. And once that data is pulled from one of these external sources and put into the Biosketch, it belongs to the investigator, and they're free to edit it however they wish. So if I pulled in something from Orkut and it had my institution in all caps and I wanted to edit that and make it look pretty and use a different case, that's fine. I can go in, I can edit that information, I can add to it, I can add additional entries, and it's a one-way transfer of information. So I don't have to worry about overwriting something in a different database. It's all local to this one Biosketch that I'm creating now. But the investigator does have complete control. So even if it was imported, they have control over editing and fixing it if they wish. For citations, we offer a pick list. And in this example, you have a tab for the My Bibliography that comes default with your SciENcv account. And that's a local place, local to SciENcv, where you can store your citations. My Bibliography works really well with PubMed. You can pull citations from there. If you are an NIH-funded investigator, you use My Bibliography to track your NIH-funded awards. But if you're from the NSF, if you have an NSF grant, and maybe you're not publishing in a life science journal, life science journals are commonly found in PubMed. Maybe I'm publishing in a physics journal, which is not indexed by PubMed. Well, Orkut is a really great option there, and you can have Orkut pull from these different publisher sites to kind of make a nice bibliography in Orkut. That's made available to you in SciENcv once you link your Orkut account. You're able to pull citations in and use, and you can pull from either of these tabs for any of the sections. So I could take 2 citations from the bibliography I have here, and I could take 3 citations from Orkut. That's fine. You can mix and match as you need. One of the things that we ran into this past year was lots of times physics journals, they'll have giant author lists. And it became an issue because when you put in just 1 or 2 of these citations that have hundreds of authors, it throws you right over the 2-page NSF page limit. So that was a problem right there. And so we heard from users of the system, and we talked to our colleagues at NSF, and we said, all right, how should we tackle this to make it great for the user? We still don't want to lose information that's valuable to reviewers that are looking through this and they want to see everything that's on there. What is the solution that we can come up with? And this is what I presented last time was a feature for you to be able to edit author lists that are coming in from Orkut. So if you have a citation in Orkut with has hundreds of authors on it, and you want to trim that down so you can get it to fit inside the page limit, you click on Edit Authors, and you're able to go in. You can change the author list. You can trim it down. You can put et al. At the end. You can make sure that your name is highlighted. You have complete control over that text box, and you can make it so that it accurately reflects your contribution and adheres to the guidelines for how people want to see these citations. Then when you're ready to make the PDF, you're ready to make the document that's going to go into the grant application. There's a link right at the top of SciENcv. You just click it, and then we put out a PDF that's in the agency approved format. So, and it also checks how many pages it is. NIH allows you to have a 5-page limit. NSF has a 2-page limit. And so whether you're exporting an NIH Biosketch or an NIH Biosketch, we check that, make sure everything's fine. so that you're adhering to the guidelines. And the great part about this is we also take the structured data that went to create these biosketches and we package it right into the PDF itself. So in that example, when I went in and I had this huge author list, it was too big to fit all this information into the NSF Biosketch. And so I went in and we edited it. The PDF is going to have that nice truncated compact form of the citation. So you're within the page limits, but we put the full citation as the structured XML addition to that PDF. So you're staying within the page limits. You have a nice readable document. When you send this off to NSF, they get behind the scenes the full citation with all the authors that were part of that original citation. So we think that was a great way to kind of serve both purposes, making it useful for the authors that were presenting themselves, and NSF doesn't lose any of that information. Everybody can stay within the page limits. So that was a great outcome. But having this data model and the structured data, it really gives you a lot of other options that are really super useful. So let's take an example where I've gone in and I make a biosketch for my NIH grant application. I've entered all the information in. What happens if I want to also make a biosketch for the National Science Foundation? Well, since I have this data behind the scenes that's populated all of this, we can easily say, you know what, why don't you copy this NIH biosketch and give me an NSF form of it? And then we just take all the fields and put it over into the NSF biosketch, and you can go in and edit it and you're off to the races again. It's not a one-to-one match. There's some things that the NIH biosketch asks for that's not in the NSF biosketch, and vice versa. So you do have to fill in some of the blanks when you do this, but it is able to take all the information you put in one form and export it into a different form. So that's really a nice time saver. There's also another use case that comes up, and it's actually going to be coming down the pike for the NIH biosketch, and that is when they update the biosketch form. So if the agency says, hey, guess what? We have a new version of the biosketch. There's going to be some new things you're going to have to add. Well, SciENcv can, all of those old biosketches that you've created in our system, when a new format comes out, we can easily just take information that you've created and put into a former biosketch format, and we can generate a new biosketch into the new form with all the information that you've already put into the old form that you've stored on our system. So if you have a Word doc and you kind of do these things by hand in your office, you're going to have to go in and figure out what all the changes are and then make all those additions and make all the changes yourself. But using SciENcv, we have that data model behind that's captured all this information. We can just output it into the new form for you, and you're able to make any adjustments that you need. So there has been talk, the NIH is contemplating making some changes coming up in the next year. So we've been discussing this with the policy office just to make sure that SciENcv is going to be ready to produce biosketches in the new form that's agreed upon, and all the data that you're entering today into SciENcv will be able to put it into the new biosketch once that gets approved and announced and comes down the pike. As I mentioned, well, maybe I didn't mention this, but last year we also added support for the NSF current and pending support. The current NIH biosketch has all the funding in the last segment of the biosketch, but NSF breaks that out into a separate document. So we support that currently. I know other agencies that we've recently been talking to also have the same type of model where they have a current and pending support separate document. And so if they come onto the SciENcv platform, we'll be able to support that as well. And just like the biosketch has this structured data that is behind the scenes and produces that form, we take the same exact approach for the current and pending support. So we have a data model, it produces that document for you, and then we package the structured information onto the current and pending support form. And when that goes into your grant application package, NSF can get that structured data as well for free as part of that application. So some things that are really nice about SciENcv is you can have as many citations or as many biosketches as you want. Some people have different biosketches that are highlighting specific areas of their expertise for different grant applications. So they might have a grant application that's focused on molecular biology and one that's more clinically relevant, and you can have as many biosketches as you want in whatever formats that you want. When you're ready to create the PDF, you just click that top link and we'll output the PDF on demand. If you look through the PDF and there's an error or something, you just jump right back to the form, make the correction, click the button, you get a new PDF. You can also have a delegate manage this account. So if you have somebody that you work closely with and you would like to have them manage this information for you, you can send out an invitation from SciENcv and they can come in and they can manage the biosketches for you in your account as well. And that's something that can be added and revoked at will. So we started in 2013. It was just a little pilot back then. We had 100 people or so that came in and made some biosketches. And you see, we've grown throughout the years. I like to kind of look like what were the jumps, and we had a jump in 2014 to 2015, and that was because there was a major change to the NIH Biosketch at that time. So the 2015 version, it had a lot of different changes to it. The old version just had a list of 25 citations that you could add. In the 2015 version, they wanted prose to be added, descriptions of contributions to science. So it represented a major change, and it also represented a major opportunity for SciENcv because people were like, I don't feel like going and seeing everything I have to do. They went right to SciENcv and we made the biosketches for them because we had it set up to accommodate that new one. And you've seen, as you can see here, over the past year, we had a 50% bump in people coming, and that's thanks to our friends at National Science Foundation. So SciENcv became an NSF approved format. We've seen a lot of growth from people coming in and using the system to fill out their NSF biosketches for their NSF grant application. So it's been really exciting and really good, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback on things to make the system better, and we've been listening to it all and accommodating what we can. So through the years, we've already generated over 250,000 documents that have gone out into grant applications. It's very popular for people to link accounts either to eRE Commons or Orcid and NSF. I think just like a year or two ago, there was only like 1,000 or so NSF linked accounts. So just within the last several months, we've had a huge jump in the number of researchers that have been linking their NSF accounts to SciENcv, which is really great. And there is an option if you want to make a biosketch public, and we'll give you a URL and you can share it. And there's 24,000 public biosketches that have taken advantage of that. So that is as of yesterday. Finally, we have lots of documentation to help you and help your grantees. Here's the link again for SciENcv. There's full book type documentation at this link here. And we also have some really nice videos that should give you targeted support if you want to make, see what the system is, kind of an overview of it, or if you're interested in a biographical sketch for NSF, we have a video targeted for that. And there's also a video targeted for filling out the current and pending support. And finally, we maintain help desks both at NIH, and you can write directly to us if you have a problem with SciENcv, if you have a question about your account or how to use the system. We also coordinate with the NSF help desk. So if you have a question about the policy for applying for an NSF grant, there's the link for the NSF help desk. You can reach out and ask for support there. And we do have regular meetings to make sure that nobody's falling through the cracks and everybody's getting helped. So that is the end of my presentation.
All right. Hey, thanks, Barb. So before we transition to our next speaker, I want to thank you all for posting all your questions. I'm scrambling to keep up with them all, and some of them were pretty detailed. But after the next presentation is done, then we'll jump into the questions and we'll have some discussion around that. To that point, to make sure that we do have a discussion, a robust discussion, I'm going to ask Lillian to post our questionnaire before the next speaker. All right, so the question is about adoption. And so we've just heard from Bart, here's where SciENcv is, and we're going to hear from Michelle in terms of where NSF is. My question for the audience is, where are the institutions? And the options there, let me quickly, just for the recording, say, I tried to create some options that were sensible. First of all, on the far extreme, we're not going to do SciENcv because we have our own internal systems or some other preferred option. My institution has not adopted SciENcv, but the researchers can use it if they like. We're considering adoption, like as an institution, but there's some issues that may be blocking it, whether it's internal issue on our side, or maybe there's a feature that's or a defect somehow that's blocking us from being able to fully use SciENcv. The last two options, my institution is considering SciENcv option, and we're working on ways to support researchers transitioning to it. And then my institution finally it has adopted SciENcv. We're supporting our researchers in transitioning fully to it. So it's intended to be a range. If your situation doesn't fit exactly into one of those, just try to pick the one that's the best fit for you, okay? And we'll leave this up. I think, Lillian, can we leave it up through Michelle's presentation?
Yes, we can, but really quick, we have a clarification question in the chat. What does adoption mean here?
Yeah, so adoption to me means, if you were here for FDP a few sessions ago, we had some really great presentations, one from NC State, the other from Notre Dame, where they talked about, here's what our administration staff are doing on behalf of the institution to help the researchers adopt SciENcv. And it was things like helping them identify their publications in ways that they can import those into to the databases that SciENcv uses. I think that was the major one. So that's the, you can define adoption as you see fit, but the way I see it is more that from an institutional perspective, that we are taking SciENcv as our target solution for managing and producing biosketches and other personnel or profile information.
We have another question. Do you mean the mandated use of SciENcv? They have trained on it, but it is optional for researchers to use.
That's probably number two. I would put that one in the second one. So yeah, so you've not adopted maybe, but researchers, but you're doing some support activities. That's probably number two. All right. So while that's going, yeah, go ahead, Lillian.
So we can leave this up once you've taken it, just to get it out of the way so you can see all of Michelle's wonderful slides. You can just go ahead and minimize it on your own screen.
Okay, so with that, let me turn over to Michelle Robb. She is an IT project manager at NSF, and she was responsible for implementing the NSF approved formats for biosketch and current and pending support this past year. And she's going to talk to us about what NSF has been doing. Also, like, what are some of the issues in the resolution of those, or common issues that we've seen, and what are the resolutions for those? So take it away, Michelle.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? All right, good. Are you driving the presentation, David? Because I don't think I can from here. Because we can, if so, we can go to the first slide. Okay. So As you all know, and as Bart touched on a little bit in his presentation, beginning late last year, October 5th of 2020, the requirement for PIs and senior personnel to submit their biographical and current and pending support documents using an NSF approved format was enforced in Fastlane, research.gov, at the proposal submission functions, as well as in the project reports upon upload, and then in grants.gov after receipt at NSF. And also, as you know, probably these documents, the ones that are not in an NSF approved format, trigger a compliance error. And that prevents proposal submission or the completion of the post-award actions. And so we also included a little bit of data here about from September through December, how many NSF CVs are on NSF, as well as current and pending support numbers as well. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, just going to give you guys some insight on some of the issues that we are seeing, or some of the issues that we've seen to date, and then what kind of guidance or resolution we're providing around those issues. The first one is one that one major one that we've received a lot of complaints about, and that is the current and pending support PDF document, and the fact that there are extra or blank pages for the current and pending support. And so there's a high frequency in the number of issues we get around this. The guidance that we're giving users is to either proceed with the extra pages, because it won't stop the submission, or users can prepare their current and pending support document in SciENcv and they won't encounter this issue. Another one that we've gotten is related to the Biosketch Pdf, and it's around the allotted space for the products. The allotted space is not flexible enough to fit the 5 product citations. And again, we do receive a high frequency of this issue. Our guidance is that we're asking users to modify the product citations to fit the allotted space, or they can use the et al feature. Another option is to remove the URLs, or again, to prepare their Biosketch in SciENcv. Okay. Another one that we get is it both occurs in the current and pending support and the Biosketch, and that is some users are seeing errors when they attempt to view the previously updated PDF documents in Fastlane and research.gov. And this is due to whatever technology or preparation tools that users are using to upload their documents. Due to the number of PDF preparation tools that are available, we can't really monitor or control what software was used. So we did push out a fix to update the PDF generation tool version, and this reduced the number of instances that we saw in this issue, but we still from time to time still do see this. The guidance that we're giving users, again, and which you'll see is a theme, is we direct users to SciENcv for this. I won't go through the rest of these because you have them within the document yourself, but just to give you a high level, we also get policy related questions, and in those cases, we direct the user to the policy, or like for instance, one is the 2-page limit. It's not enough space. And so we direct users to the policy, or we even include the policy documentation in some of our responses back to the user inquiries. Can we go to the next page, David? Okay, and so these are the common SciENcv user support issues that we see. The first two are, again, like I mentioned from the last slide, policy-related questions. One is around, not being able to include support for which there are no person months committed. And so we direct users to what the policy says, and that individuals should only include person months, which they are committing time to. The second one is a policy-related question. And the third is related to Biosketch. It's the imported Orkut citations are long and results in documents of more than 2 pages. And so we get a medium frequency of this question. And what our guidance to users is that they manually edit the citations to list one or more of the authors and then use the at all feature. They can also update or remove the long URLs. And so let me see what the next two are. We go to the next page. These are related to Biosketch, low frequency again. And I think one of these might have been mentioned I think I might have seen one of these mentioned in the chat. The order of appointments is it does not show as expected due to concurrent appointments. And so our guidance is that users can use the use this entry as the position title and the current employment for the appointments they wish to list first. And then the second one is around the special characters in the product citations. And so we get a low frequency of that, and NCBI is evaluating some potential enhancements to that one. So one takeaway I want to give you guys, as with showing these issues, is that if we compare the frequency between SciENcv and the NSF fillable PDF, the SciENcv has proven to be a much better solution so far. If we're just looking at the frequency of issues that we're getting and the type of questions that we're getting. So if we go back one slide, David. Okay, it's not, I'm sorry, it's not on here. So based on that information and based on this data that we have, as far as, the issues that we're receiving, we are internally at NSF looking at the potential or evaluating the potential of even updating or changing the NSF fillable Biosketch and current and pending support documents. And so those discussions are definitely underway. And we plan to keep this audience updated on any results or any outcomes of those conversations as we go forward. Okay, and so that ends my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. All right, so let me kick off the discussion part of our session here, and we have about 44 minutes. So looking at the survey results, it seems to be clustering around 2 things. Either my institution has decided, or our position is that researchers can use it if they like. And maybe there's some, somebody mentioned before, maybe there's some training provided for it to help them use it, but there's not an institutional posture on it. And then the other cluster, about the other half, seems to be around, we're either considering or have, made a institutional decision that SciENcv is our target, and that we are or will be supporting researchers in transitioning to it. And I think that that's the audience where, or the group that the eRE can really, where we really want to help. And I think when we get back together again in our next meetings, we're going to be talking about, well, how can we support these institutions and help help those 2 groups kind of collaborate. So that's really helpful information. So thank you again, all the great questions have been coming in. I've been capturing them. I'm also getting some questions for policy folks, and I have a couple of people, a couple of the policy, NSF policy people on the call. They're posting answers, so I will apologize up front if I stumble on that, but I'm going to try to provide their answers in turn. So anyway, enough about that. So first question up is from Kelly. Kelly asked about SciENcv is when will it import from Orkut? Bart, is that enough information for you to answer the question, or do you want me to call on Kelly to say more?
It does import from Orkut. Is there something more to that question?
So I think that was Kelly Shaver. So I'm going to ask to unmute. Oh, yeah. And anyway, so Kelly, jump in if you want to add more to that.
No, I just want to add my thanks. That was asked very early in the session before it was clear that everything is imported from Orkut. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Very good.
All right. Next question is from my friend Ron. And he's asking, yes, we're seeing an increase in demand for PIDs, the persistent identifiers. And this is super complicated question, so Ron, you may have to elaborate on this. But with new faculty, federal investigators collaborating on research, and the need to not only have a persistent research profile, but the ability to point to compliance requirements such as training, and he uses CITI as an example. Do you see a path for PIDs that cross these boundaries? And I think that's, Bart, that's pretty much in your domain. Can you?
It is. So, Ron, are you talking about investigators or for like digital objects?
For investigators, I think the issue we've seen at our university is that a persistent identifier ties the things together for an individual, much as you've done, Bart, with SciENcv with profiles. So just the other side of the question, if you will.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it's probably better for NIH policy to answer that one. I do know that NIH is kind of exploring, SciENcv was kind of the first entree into linking Orkut IDs to SciENcv, and it was really a unique opportunity because we also have these eRE common IDs, and it was one of the first aha moments was they said, wait, how many Orkut IDs are also linked to eRE commons? And that was kind of like the entry point into examining that, and we started shipping the data over when you had this linkages, and then they had something really nice where they had these commons profiles linked to an Orkut ID. They could go out, get information from Orkut, make sure that that was an appropriate match. And they've actually incorporated that into eRE commons now. So you can actually link your commons ID either in SciENcv or in eRE commons. And I know that they're kind of exploring even pushing that further because I think they're starting with trainees are being required to register for Orkut accounts. Lori, I see you there shaking your head. Yes, so I got that right. Okay.
Yeah, by the way, that's Lori Schultz. She's my co-chair on the eRE committee. So thank you for joining. Okay, so the next question was from Ruby. She was asking about Orkut and Google accounts using those for logins. Does that create a safety concern in terms of data since those are not government controlled? Bart, what do you think?
We only use those for the authentication piece. So when you come in and you've linked your Google account and you say, I want to sign in through Google, you actually get transferred over to the Google. You authenticate over there in their system, and then you're passed back. And actually, us getting out of the username and password business, I had mentioned we're getting rid of this local authentication piece was something that we were examining, saying like that's a security concern, actually being in that authentication business, and that's why we're kind of offloading that to these identity providers and outside agencies to do the authentication.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say NSF's perspective is about the same. So, all right. So Mandy asks, oh, whoops, I skipped. Mark asks, what interfaces are available for institutions to access the data in SciENcv? Art, you're very popular.
So we don't have anything for that. And currently, you know, the way SciENcv is set up is this is a tool for investigators to come and assemble this data and prepare it, and then decide, I've got a biosketch that I'm ready to submit. And it's really in the PI's control. And so the institutions, you know, if you ask your PIs to submit that biosketch to the institution as well, that's completely up to the PI. But we leave the control into the PI. There isn't any way, we don't allow institutions to come in and crawl around the database or anything.
Yeah, so I think I've heard that question before in the context of, yeah, so it might be a nice feature to add to be able to interface directly from my, particularly from my, from another citation repository. So is there, maybe I missed it. Did you cover that? Is there a possibility of doing that?
So we've taken this was one of the advantages that we had with Orkut, because, you know, Orkut they're really interested in allowing people to have these nice, rich profiles, and as part of that, Orkut has the resources to go out and partner with all these different citation databases. So we don't have those resources at NIH where we'd have to go out and figure out, okay, what's the data model that Elsevier has, and what's the data model that Scopus has, and you know, it would be a death by 1,000 cuts for us. But Orkut, on the other hand, they're great at that, and they're great at partnering with that. So just by linking that Orkut account, you can use that Orkut to then go out to all these other citation databases, pull them into your profile, then they're all available for you to put into SciENcv and use for your biosketch. So we've been reserving our resources in enhancing SciENcv itself and making sure it's bug-free and adding new features to it. And we've been leaving the citation part, other than PubMed, we've been leaving that to Orkut to leverage their expertise in.
Cool. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Next question was from Mandy. It was about use of the et al. In citations, and our policy folks at NSF have posted this answer. NSF responds to the use of et al. Senior personnel that wish to include publications in the product section of the biographical sketch that include multiple authors may, at their discretion, choose to list one or more of the authors and then et al. In lieu of the complete authors list. And there's some pretty specific instructions over in PAPG on how to do that. So I think that actually knocks out Mandy and Steve's questions.
So David, I'll just add a little bit more to that. I think the key there was referring to the guide of exactly how NSF wants this formatted, because essentially when you say you want to edit that author list, we give you a text box with all the authors on there, and it's up to you to format it. So if NSF wants it formatted a particular way, follow their guidance. I had a conversation with some people from DOE, and they were asking, like, hey, is it possible, we want to know, you know, if you edit it down and you only have 3 authors, what if we want to know someone was the author 23? I'm like, well, it's a text box. They could enter that in. It's up to you to set what you want to see when they go in and truncate these citations. So it's a text box, so it's anything's possible. Follow the guidelines.
Cool. Yeah, that's nice to have that flexibility. So Nicole asked, numerous times departmental personnel are tasked with updating biosketches. However, they're not able to update the PDF. Is there a way for the output to be in Word as well? Or is it limited to PDF? Well, okay, so I think that's an NSF question, so I'm going to kick it over to Michelle.
So yes, it is limited to PDF at this time. There hasn't been any, Word was considered at the initial development of the form, but there was a decision to go with PDF. And I don't know what I don't know if there's any plan to change that at this point. So.
Cool. All right. Joan asks a comment from one of our pre-award department administrators regarding slow adoption of SciENcv. With proposal submissions involving multiple institutions, while we can try to control the 6 investigators, for example, in our institution, it's more difficult with the other 17 at multiple other institutions. SciENcv has more flexibility and allows shared access if investigators delegate up to edit or print the 2 documents. However, it requires a profile and the person to log in and then figure out how to delegate, which is a deterrent for investigators. It also has some quirks in terms of completing the forms. Bart, do you have any response to that? I mean, I think that's, that's inherent in the.
That's good feedback for us to know that it's not entirely straightforward how to do the delegation. So that's something we can put into our instructions. It's also a process that perhaps we can improve and make it more straightforward. I know we encountered an issue several months ago with someone that was a delegate for dozens and dozens of different profiles, and there was a display issue, but we fixed that. We couldn't fix her having to manage 50 people's biosketches, but we got the list to display correctly for them.
Yeah, and let me say from the putting on my NSF hat, NSF doesn't require if one investigator uses SciENcv, it's not requiring all of the investigators to use SciENcv. Yes, that's the best. That's the best. But we are seeing proposals being submitted with a mix of both the NSF fillable PDF as well as so. Anyway. That's a little bit different perspective. So Debbie Nixon was asked, she made the comment actually for you, Bart, the full citation and the raw data is very impressive.
Good. Well, I work in library medicine. That's our bread and butter.
Yeah, thanks for the compliment, Debbie.
Yeah,
appreciate it. So Jacqueline says she was on the SRA webcast earlier today with NIH presenters. They mentioned that the new Biosketch is still a couple months out. And so that's Bart shaking his head. That's true. Julie says, I've had cases where the citations links take up so much room, the PIs have to delete some of the products for synergistic activities to make the PDF 2 pages. This was Fastlane team's remedy for the problem, as Michelle pointed out. Is there any way to use tiny URLs or other abbreviations for long links in the citations? Or some other solution that will essentially force faculty to leave out some important information in their biosketches. I don't know, Michelle, do you have anything to? I'm not sure there's a real answer to that, but do you have a response?
I don't. I know for Fastlane, I don't think there's any. Let me go back and look at the question. I don't think there's I don't see there being any changes to Fastlane. I mean, maybe within the research.gov realm, but I don't think the plan is to make any changes to Fastlane. How Fastlane handles it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me, using tiny URL or any of those other URL abbreviation things, I mean, that's a little risky, but you know, there's no way for the agencies to prevent that. So, you know, if that works for you, but it's at your risk, you know, obviously. Jamie says, is there any discussion about adding functionality that allows routine quick editing of the citation IDs that are auto-populated? Sometimes there are several listed, and he or she mentions PubMed, CMID, PubMed Central, web address, etc. They quickly contribute to putting a document over the sponsor page limit.
Oh, okay. So I think what the comment is saying is we're displaying so many IDs on the citation itself, it makes it too long. I think that's kind of what is the gist of that, right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been evaluating that. There are 3 different IDs that NIH is interested in. There's a manuscript ID, there's a PubMed ID, there's a PMC ID, and we're about to make a change where we're only displaying one of those. So if there's a manuscript, it's not in PubMed yet, we only show the manuscript ID. If it has the PubMed Central ID, you don't care what the manuscript ID is, because the PMC ID is what shows compliance with public access policy. We're only going to show that one. So we are making a change to directly address that. But if you look at the structured data, we have all the IDs in there, because it's like a keychain. You can have as many IDs as you want to an object.
Cool, thanks, Bart. Davida says, piggybacking off of the comment from Nicole and Jamie, the linked data does show some errors in conversion. When trying to edit the PDF, it is locked and difficult to unlock. In addition, the fillable PDF sometimes will not allow you to add citations. It can be restricted. From Nicole, okay, going back to, so Nicole was talking about a PDF, and Jamie was talking about, yeah, the web links. Is there an option or plan? I don't know, Bart, is this, I'm not sure I understand the question, Davida. You still on? All right, well, let's come back to, oh, there she is. Let's come back to it. Stephanie S. asks, has there been talk about expanding the character limit on the NSF current and pending form in the section where we have to describe the in-kind contributions? In both the NSF approved PDF and SciENcv, there's a character limit. And in some cases, researchers need more space to describe the in-kind contributions. Michelle, have you heard any conversation about space limit or character limit?
Yeah, I feel like this is one I've heard before. Does this have to do with the fiscal year and
No,
how the calendar year?
This is on the in-kind contribution description field.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Has there been talk about expanding the character limit on the current and pending form in the section where we have to describe the in-kind contribution?
No, there has not. No, there has not been there has not been any talk about that right now. But we can.
Oh, okay. So Stephanie says she's gonna she can explain. So
oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my question. Okay, so this is a little bit complicated and it's policy and both system related. We ran into a situation, so let me describe it, where a PI was trying to describe an in-kind contribution that was associated with an active NASA grant. So I want you to picture this. The PI is listing the NASA grant in the project and proposal section on the CMP form, right? And with that active grant, there is an in-kind contribution that's totally dedicated to that active grant. So the in-kind, so going back to policy, the in-kind contribution is not something that would go in the facilities and other support page because it's not something associated with the proposed project in question. So it's an in-kind contribution with a time commitment. And it's reported in that in-kind contribution section. So we ran into a situation where we wanted to describe in SciENcv, which the investigator was using, that this in-kind contribution with the time commitment is associated with a very specific active proposal. And from a policy perspective, and where this is concerning to me, is allotting and differentiating out time commitments, between an active proposal and an in-kind contribution. You see, you're following me so far? Yep. To make it clear for the reviewer of who's reviewing that current and pending proposal, that the time commitment for that in-kind contribution is associated or actually subsumed or is part of the contribution of the active grant. Are you able to follow me? So I know it's a little bit confusing, but the bottom line is we didn't have enough room to kind of describe, hey, this in-kind contribution is associated with an active grant listed above on this form. We wanted to make that very clear. And I think, especially with this in-kind contribution piece, you know, researchers are trying really hard to be transparent and describe as much information as possible to make it clear and just be transparent. And so I noticed in the PDF form, I think there's about 256 characters about that in that space where you describe the in-kind contribution. In SciENcv, it was a little less than that, I believe. And my investigator actually was having trouble. He couldn't get past 100 characters. And so we had to like be creative in terms of what we described and truncating to kind of figure it out. I definitely sent a question to the NSF policy office and SciENcv. And so I did get some response, but I'm wondering if you could comment on that. And I don't know, maybe I opened up a can of worms. Hopefully I didn't.
No, I'm hearing from our policy counterparts, and they're saying that they do remember these discussions. However, there haven't been any changes on the table at this time. Any changes based on those discussions yet?
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe. I'm hearing from our policy folks, and I think maybe we ought to take this one offline. Like, it just seems like
Sure.
pretty specific, and I think they can answer you more directly. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I don't think that form is already so big and awkward. I'm not sure we want to make it bigger, just for a very small number of cases, if you get my drift. All right. So let's take that one and try to respond to that, have the NSF respond to that more directly. Let's see, now I've kind of lost my place, but I did have a question from Amy, who was asking, about, or saying that faculty are confused about how to list effort in NSF current and pending support by a calendar year when it almost never matches the project period. Oh yes, this old chestnut. When the project period unequally straddles the calendar year, they aren't sure how they're supposed to estimate for each. How should we advise them? Michelle, I think we've had some written FAQs on this one.
Mm-hmm. This is when they're spanning between the two. Let me see.
Yes, when the project period crosses the calendar year, and there's questions about like where are they supposed to put the dividing line in the years, and then there was also the corollary to that was, well, what if it takes more than 5 years or run out of space?
So to answer the first question, we tell the users to they should enter the later of the 2 years in the year field if they're operating on a fiscal calendar year.
Cool. Amy, jump in if that did not address your concern. Okay. And then, all right, I don't see Amy jumping in. So let me, I'll come back to you if you do want to jump in more. So Mark N comments that at the NSF response regarding year on current pending, if you're reporting person months that span, okay, so the same topic. Reporting person months that span 2 calendar years, you should enter the latter years, just what Michelle just said.
Yep.
All right. So thank you, Mark N. And lost my place. Sorry. It would be great from Julie. It would be great if the fillable Biosketch form would use flexible boxes for the information. This form takes up an entire page with just a professional preparation appointments section where in Word, many of my faculty only need half a page or so for those sections. Yeah, so I think you're asking for the fillable PDF to be more flexible. And what say you, Michelle?
Well, that's what we are discussing over the next few weeks with how we're going to move forward with the PDFs.
Yeah, and I would add to that that technology doesn't really allow it to be flexible. So
Yeah.
That fillable PDF is kind of, you kind of get what you get. I got please allow me to unmute. Lillian, do we know who that was? Oh,
me.
never mind.
Whose name it was?
I think that's OBE. So next question, and if I've skipped somebody, I'm going to try to go back and go through and make sure I haven't skipped everybody. But let me keep going. Is there a maximum amount of delegates that a PI can have for SciENcv? If there's only 10, we would need more. Bart?
I don't think there is a limit on the number of delegates that a scientist can have. So I'm assuming that question is saying, I'm a PI and I need 10 different individuals to have access to my account or more. Yeah, I don't think there's a limit either way. I think you can have as many delegates access your account, and a delegate can access as many accounts as they need to.
All right, and Bart, here's a NIH policy question for you. I may have missed this, but are there any plans for NIH to shift to mandatory SciENcv to generate other support similar to NSF? And it's kind of pending?
Was that discussed in one of the other sessions? I heard that they caught wind that there's a new NIH Biosketch form coming. So nothing's been announced yet formally, and I don't want to speak for policy, but there's discussions around that. I'll leave it at that. That's for Michelle Bowles to announce.
Yeah. Julie, you said this was in SciENcv. I guess it's picking up the thread. Since the citations can't be edited except for the authors list, there was no other remedy being able, it's talking about using the like the URL shorteners, like tiny URL. Being able to shorten the link or remove some of the other IDs would help with this problem.
Yeah. You can also go in and create a manual citation that has the information that you want as well as a workaround.
Okay. Let's see, Lillian, do you think have I missed anything? Oh, okay, one just came up. Colette was asking, just an FYI on NIH Bio, they said the announcement on the new forms would come out in the next couple of weeks, along with the salary cap notice.
There we go.
We crowdsourced that. Yeah, so I think there's still an open question of like how, if there is a limited number of delegates for a PI, what is it?
I don't think there's a limit. Now watch, someone's going to go out and they're going to push the system to the extreme. So we'll hear from you, but I do not believe there's a limit.
All right, we'll test that. NSF will test it, and I'll have all my friends. Oh wait, I don't have enough friends to test that. All right, good stuff. Anybody in the audience, did I miss your question? There was a jumble there when I was doing the survey, and so I may have missed anything. So could you please paste your question before I close back to the bottom, or raise your hand if you've got one that I missed. And oh, so Julie says this was very valuable. Many thanks to the speakers. Thank you.
Very good. I want to point out that we really get a lot out of having engagements like this. And if you run into an issue or you have a question, we have a great help desk. And don't sit there and suffer in silence, and reach out. You know, if you're having an issue and we kind of hear it from a couple places, I mean, that gives us a signal right there. Hey, this is an improvement we can make. So we really appreciate the feedback that we get. It helps us make the system better. So we're here for you.
I'll agree with what Bart said. Feedback is always welcome. So we look forward to hearing from you if you have something.
Yeah, we'll thank you to our speakers, and thank you to the SCP for helping make this, allowing us to do this. So I think the next step is I want SCP, at least the eRE committee, to be thinking about this quandary, like how can we help the folks, the 47% of folks that are in that category of either considering or have adopted SciENcv, and how can we help each other, fully adopt it and get the most out of the product that we can. So I think, so Lori, I'm looking at, she's shaking her head, and I think that's a good thing for us to take on. So I don't know whether we're going to do this again, have another SciENcv session, but if not, thank you all.
I will give one other plug. I'm at the National Library of Medicine, and we have a network of National Libraries of Medicine. So NLM does have an outreach and training office, and we do have like presence at many medical libraries across the country. So if you want to have a session or some support, route it through your medical library, and we can help you that way as well. That's another avenue.